Our talk today is on engaging with everyone to care for one another. And we're not going to give lessons to anybody. We're just going to share our experience in trying to build bridges with different people. So this is a 3-chapter story. And I'm going to start with chapter 1. Daniel is following with chapter 2, and Ghislaine is going to close. How this story started, this started for us 5 years ago when Ghislaine and I met together. And it was in a way the meeting of the two halves of a puzzle. I've been working as a general practitioner, a family physician in Canada for about 20 years. And I've had the feeling for a long time that I was the right answer to the wrong problem, that people were coming to see me for medical symptoms that were in fact a reflection of social problems like isolation, like grief, poverty, etc. In 2017, I met with Ghislaine, who has been a patient for decades and who's learned to care through her lived experience and has been working in peer support for about 50 years. And we fell in love professionally. And we decided to experiment in caring together. So what we did is we co-founded what became the Caring Community Participatory Research Project, where peers like Ghislaine and Danielle integrate the care team in the community. And they do the role of bridgers in a way between the healthcare system and communities. So healthcare professionals like myself, or nurses, the psychologists, the social workers, we do what we usually do. We provide health and social care, but we extend a hand to collaborate with peers to broaden our perspective on what it means to care. The peers in the caring community, they play 3 main roles. First, to listen, but to listen with a different pair of ears. In a way, as a physician, when I listen to people, I mostly listen to the needs, the deficits, and I seek diagnosis, which is different from listening to someone to understand their values and their strengths, as well as their goals, their life goals, which is a lot what the peers are doing. The second role is coaching to achieve these goals. And the third one is connecting, to connect people with their own strengths and abilities, but also the resources in the healthcare system and in the communities. And so as such, the peers, they act as a bridge between the healthcare system and the communities to help people reconnect with their own community, the community of hearts, their families and friends, the neighbors, but also the community organizations. And at the end, the end goal is health in the broader sense, health and well-being. And the project overall is grounded in principles of partnership, which means that we co-lead the project together, we care together, we learn from one another, and we transform things together. So that's basically the idea and what we've been experimenting with for 5 years now. Ghislaine, did you want to complement this, or just move on to Danielle for the chapter 2? Okay.
Go to chapter 2.
Your turn. So we moved into the streets.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Turgeon. Thank you for the introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm right now in frigid Montreal, Canada. I'll just take some time to explain our project. First, I just want to say, how did I get here? Well, I was homeless in the streets of Canada. With the help of key people, I was able to find a certain normality and get to what I consider to be an integral, contributing member of society. The whole process took some while. I had many people help me, so I just try to give back to society in the best way that I can. I've been doing this as a peer helper with Ghislaine and Antoine, L'achat Partenariat. What will be tomorrow, I'll be celebrating my 2 years, so that makes me pretty happy. Well, what I typically do, my tool set, I can basically say 3 main elements. I use navigation, support, and attentive listening to work on goals with my clients. And the goals that we choose, they're never my goals. It just always comes from themselves, from inside of what they want to achieve, a housing need, a project to reacquaint with family, just different goals that I work with my clients to try to bring up their self-confidence, and we go from there. For today, I have decided to talk about 3 themes that are common among us and adapt them to my clients living in situation of homelessness. That is EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and how they relate to homelessness. Let me start with diversity. Do we not accept our fellow citizens as equals? The fact is, stigma and discrimination is prevalent in day-to-day lives of those living in situation of homelessness, almost to the point that the stigma is so strong that as a homeless people, you start to believe the stigmas. And when you start believing the stigmas, you see yourself not as a human being, but how others portray you. And this makes it harder and harder to leave the street. It just kind of puts an artificial ceiling on actually wanting to leave being homelessness. The second theme is inclusion. Canada is a pioneer in the healthcare of universal healthcare. Which was basically, as we all know, the right to everyone to have access to the healthcare system as a society, not by paying as an individual. Well, in my case, many of my clients, they've had traumas in the past with the healthcare system, and it is very hard to navigate. So many times, just going to a general meeting with a doctor is very hard. So it basically gives a system where many feel excluded from seeking medical attention. I have customers on a daily basis that I'll accompany, I'll bring them to see a doctor. Just things we take for granted, waiting half an hour in a room when you're homelessness, or having a scheduled meeting at 8 o'clock when you don't know how to get to the hospital in a timely fashion, can lead to many issues. Let's go on. Things we take for granted, for example, inequity. We all have 3 meals a day. We take a shower every day. We have a roof over our head. These are all things we take for granted. But for my clients, these simple things are not a right. They have to fight on a daily basis just to be able to eat, sleep, and have a warm environment. This is how it is being homelessness. And if I can add one element, now we're in Canada, and as you know, Montreal gets cold in winter. Can you imagine when it's negative 30 Celsius and you're outside and you don't have a place to go? It gets to the point where it can be dangerous, really, for your life. So that's what I wanted to say today. I would like to leave you in conclusion. Again, on EDI, we always speak about a marginalized group, but it's my belief that my clients, the clientele I service, those living in situation of homelessness, are the most stigmatized and marginalized of our modern society. Thank you.
So, well, Ghislaine, now it's your turn. I'll let you do the transition.
Well, first of all, I just want to say hello to Agustina. It's so nice seeing you, and thank you for having us. If we look at this over there, you can see that at the core of the caring community are the peers. In fact, it's a diversity of us, youth, chronic disease, mental health, homelessness, harm reduction, women's health, indigenous health, migrants' health, aging, end of life. In fact, what we have here is a full life trajectory in itself. We learned from the pandemic that everything we do, that the way we care should be done as a team, as in fact an integrated team. We put together by and for the peers a learning circle. We are about 15 peers sharing, exploring, innovating, discovering, taking care of one another, supporting each other, taking strength in the knowledge that we are not alone anymore. At last now we are a team. That together we can achieve more than alone, especially through research, that not on us anymore, but by and with us among researchers like Danielle and myself. We have a diversity of backgrounds and roles, but grounded in the common values, breaking silos by sharing knowledge and learning from each other. In fact, what we are doing is that we are making the invisible visible by opening the doors to a variety of peers working hand in hand with professionals by talking, sharing, listening, innovating together to truly be an integrated caring community. So in a nutshell, this is exactly what working together, a team, does for one another and does for the research. Thank you.
And just so you understand how the three chapters connect, for us as a team, when we started, it was basically just Ghislaine and I working together. And then it's something that spread slowly. The role of research initially was a protected bubble. It was a protected space. That's what allowed us to try new ways to collaborate together, because my colleagues, they were very afraid about this, the idea that a patient would become part of the care team. And people were reassured by the idea that this was part of a research project. And so research initially wasn't about building knowledge. It was just allowing us to try something different. The second thing that we started to do through research is to learn from how other people cared with peers in the literature, but also in different teams. And that's how we started in chapter 2 to work with Danielle. We started working with a second clinic outside of the primary care clinic where Ghislaine and I started working together. We work with a community healthcare center where there's a homeless outreach clinic that were interested in working with peers and asked for our help to support the team in integrating Danielle. So that was chapter 3. Chapter 2. Chapter 3, for us, research became at a different role. It sort of became a flashlight for us to go into the community and discover other teams who already work with peers, but who are, as Ghislaine was saying, who are invisible, who are unknown to most of the healthcare teams and the healthcare system. And so what we found is that peer support is very alive, but it's very invisible at the same time. We've discovered indigenous teams who are already doing outreach work with people who have lived experience. Same thing with women's group, same thing in mental health, among migrants with precarious status, etc. And so what we're doing now is gathering these people largely through the work of Ghislaine and Danielle into a community, a learning community, where peers can learn from one another, and where we can also share knowledge among health professionals and peers. So that's how we've developed. That's how our journey worked. So to close before the question period, because we mostly wanted to discuss with you, here are 3 things that we've learned along the way, and resources, practical resources if you want to go further. The first one is to be conscious of our own privileges. So when we think about vulnerable population or marginalized populations, the first, the mirror, we should turn it towards ourselves and understand our own privileges. And I can talk a lot about this. You know, I'm a white man, physician. I'm in the top 1% in terms of salary. I have a house, all of that, and being conscious of this helps to understand our differences. The second useful reference that I've provided in the presentation comes from the Center for Health Justice. They've put together 10 principles of trustworthiness, and they're really worth the read. They're very short, but they're very impactful. And the first one is the community already has knowledge, and that's why they don't trust you. You're not the only experts. So that's humility is a core attitude and posture that we found is very useful. And the third principle we've learned from an Indigenous elder in a conference who taught us to move our projects and to build relationships at the speed of trust, not at the speed of light, not at the speed of research grants or at the speed of electoral cycles, but at the speed of trust. And so our project is moving very slowly, but along the way, we're building very strong relationships that transform us first and then transform other people. So this is what we've learned. And we'll leave you with a quote from a famous singer from Montreal that we like very much, Leonard Cohen, who said, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And that's what we've had the pleasure to experiment as a team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was such a great presentation. And I have to say, we have to be really thankful that they're with us because I think they have a grant application due tomorrow. So this is really, really appreciated. And it's really good to see you again. I just wanted to open up the floor for questions, the floor or the online chat for questions. Do people have anything they would like to ask Antoine, Ghislaine, or Danielle about their project, about the way that they work, about, you know, how has this come about? They were, you know, their presentation was really thorough, but, you know, does anyone want to ask something or have a comment? There's a microphone just at the center there. Otherwise, there's a roving mic near Kalia. Yeah, you can go. Just check that it's on. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was amazing. I really enjoyed that. Continuing engagement. My name is Lo Wai Tan. I'm with the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons. My question more towards Danielle and Ghislaine is, how do you actually communicate with each other? Do you use like Google Docs or something where you can actually talk to each other and keep everybody in the loop without having to go into, in some cases, like in my organization, it's very hard to have external people have email accounts. And so how do you talk to each other and get the information across in a timely manner?
Did you hear that question? Yes.
Ghislaine, do you want to go? You have much experience in different modes of communication.
I can start to answer. First of all, thank you for the question. And for example, I don't live in Montreal. Where I live is 4 hours away from Montreal. And in fact, it's very easy for me to communicate and very fast. Actually by Zoom or by emails, and we have meetings every week to start with. So that's very simple, straightforward. When I work with the patient that I do accompany, there's texto all the time. One thing. The other thing is that I have my phone that is available also in case of emergency. So we can, without any problem, communicate. And when there's something really important, for example, I have the privilege to be able to text Antoine anytime I want. So every information, everything we do is really communicate very quickly through the others. And the same with Danielle. We have the circle that I talk a little bit about, that we do get together once a month, where we can discuss, support each other, have people coming and discussing with us. So for us, at least for me, I will speak only for me, it's not a problem. We can, whether being with the patient, the clients, or the rest of the team, it's very easy. And since I said I am not in Montreal, from time to time, I go to Montreal when there's something really important and needy. So, Danielle, your turn.
It's a good question. If I can make a small note, with COVID, we alternated from the beginning that I was with the project with technology. We use technology to the best ways we can. Again, like having the Zoom meetings with our group every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. And for my clients, I consider myself a field worker. There's 4 resources, homeless centers in Montreal that are in my territory, and every given day I go visit them. I have my customers who know who I am. We'll just say hi. We'll talk a little in an informal way. But it's really just going to resources because it's important for me to be where my customers are. Typically, where I work, my team members, they prefer in-house at the hospital meetings versus myself as a peer helper. It's important for me to be where my customers are.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions, even from online attendees? No? Yeah, there's 2 questions. So Barbara, would you like to get up to the mic? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Barbara. I'm also a guest speaker. So one thing I am aware of, that in South Australia, we have been reviewing our multicultural legislation. And at the moment, we are engaging on a charter for multiculturalism. And one thing that's really struck me was the diagram that you had, where when we're talking about culture, we have to look at, how far does the scope of it go? So, and when I saw gender diversity, and then I looked at all the others and I thought, well, there's diversity around homelessness, there was self-harm, there's diversity. And so we get pulled, further and further when we're talking about multiculturalism and interculturalism. So my question to you is, how do you keep a focus? How do you keep it, what you're working on in scope, so that you don't, it doesn't all become too big and overwhelming? Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, for us, it's been very important since the beginning to keep a broad vision and an inclusive practice. We started working together, Gisèle and I, in a general primary care practice. And the basic principle is everybody's welcome and we're going to care for everyone. And so that's why we did not want to build a disease-specific peer support project or a population-specific project. For us, this was about everybody. And what we've experimented, which was a bit different from what's been published in the literature so far, is that we haven't tried to match people based on the fact that they have the same skin color or the same age or they've had the same diagnosis. The basic assumption we've had is that, well, we're all human beings, and we learn to care through different journeys. Some of us learn to care through the books and universities, like me, and others learn to care through lived experience, like Ghislaine and Danielle. And there are certain things that are common. And one thing that I've heard, and Ghislaine can comment, I've heard from Ghislaine a number of times, is that a number of the people she works with, even though they look different on the surface, when the relationship builds, there's always something in common that is being found through the relationship. And that's how you become peers. That's how you recognize each other as peers, is because there's something that is shared in the experience, but it's not necessarily obvious at the beginning, at the surface. So yeah, that's part of the answer, I would say, to start with. Then I can comment more at a project level and funding level and all that. But at the human level, I think that's the most important piece.
If Antoine allows me, where I work at the CLSC, there's 3 clienteles. We service the First Nation and also refuges, homeless shelters for women. And what most is good at the stage we are in the project now is the next peer helpers we want to hire are peer helpers for the First Nation, and a peer helper that would be a woman, which really shows we're trying to go in the direction of being as diverse as we can.
If I just end the conversation, in our circle, learning circle, we have Indigenous people with us. And at the very beginning, we were not worried, but we were just questioning ourselves. Are we gonna understand each other? Are we gonna talk the same languages? And after an hour, we realized that we had a common language, the language of humanity, the language of the peer, the language of the experience that we have, the knowledge, the language of the pain that we suffer. And so, yeah, I think we were surprised in one way, because we hear so much, how difficult it is to get along. But in fact, if we know how really, truly to listen to the other, to listen to the pain, to listen to the hopes, well, we realize we speak the same language. So for us, this is what we found. I don't know if I answer your question, but maybe a little bit.
Thank you. Anyone else? Did you have a question? Yeah, please come up.
Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, great presentation, by the way. Like, really awesome to hear what you're doing over there. So my name is Matt, and I'm from the Leukemia Foundation, and I'm the Consumer Engagement Coordinator. It's been a very interesting journey, because just this year I've started in the role, and this is the first time we've been formalizing it. So we've been building up a registry and everything like that, database. It's been a sort of fun, but a very very difficult at times too. Anyway, I don't know if this is a good question, but for you guys, do you have that sort of problem, where the same people are putting up their hands for the research projects? I don't know, if that is an issue, I'd love to hear from you guys. How do you go about it? Do you have a strategy, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, I can comment on that. So I was a bit smiling listening to the conversation at the beginning. Ghislaine and I, we were texting. Actually, the idea of a consumer registry, when I wrote my first application for the research chair, that was in 2014, it came with an infrastructure research grant. And I thought what was the big idea there was to build a registry, and we're still been, we're just, yeah, anyhow. So, and we have the same conclusion as you have, the current patient partners that we have in Canada, overwhelmingly are white, a lot of people who are retired, certain type of disease are overrepresented, and all of that. And when you look at the strategy and how we reach and build relationships, it's mostly through who has the privilege or the strengths to reach our institutions and to be known by us. The thing we've been trying to do is in the past couple of years is a bit different. And it basically starts with walking outside of the ivory tower and going in the streets. So Daniel, when he came into our team, he invited me to go in the streets with him. And same thing with our colleagues at the Indigenous Friendship Center. After a while, they said, well, if you want to know what we do, you can come over, and don't come as an observer. Come as a participant, distribute sandwiches, bring a backpack, participate, contribute. And I've got to say, it was very humbling for me. I realized that I feel like I'm caring for a lot of people, but in fact, there's a lot of people I don't care for, that I don't know about. They never reach my waiting room in my family practice. So, yeah, that's what I can say for now. Yeah.
Thanks, Antoine. And we have one question from online that Tamara will ask us. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So the question online comes from Akushla, who is asking, I'm wondering how you have continued to fund the caring community beyond the initial grant.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a grant application for tomorrow.
No, well, it's actually been quite well, it's been a concern since the beginning, actually. And we'll be totally honest with you. We've had some successes and some very big challenges that we still haven't resolved on that front. Starting with the challenges in my own backyard, the clinic where Ghislaine works, which is my own clinic, it's been 5 years. We've counted that Ghislaine has offered about 3,000 hours of care for the registered patients in our clinic, and we still haven't gotten a single dollar to pay for Ghislaine's salary coming from the clinic outside of research funds. So in a way, that's been a huge failure on that front. Where we've had a big success is with Danielle's clinic. And with Wendy's presentation earlier, and that's about the average length for translation of research into practice of 17 years. So we have a different score on that front. So Danielle was hired on research funds on a very short-term research grant that we got during the pandemic. And so we did a bit of preparation work. Danielle was hired in December 2020. In the summertime, 6 months later, we ran out of funds, and we were not successful with our bid for renewal of the research grant. But the team at the Community Health Center, they were so impressed by Danielle's work, they didn't want him to leave. They found a way to find a budget, hire him on a contract by the healthcare authority. And was it 2 weeks ago, Danielle got a position, like a formal position 2 weeks ago, two years after the beginning of the project. So in a way, we got buy-in from the partner organization within 6 months and a permanent position in 2 years after. So that was a success. And reflecting back on what made the difference, for us, the difference was through what we call scaling deep strategies, is doing the experience of working with peers, not reading about it in research papers, but doing the experience, so that people who thought, well, you know, a peer, it may be dangerous, but when they started working with Danielle, it really changed their hearts and minds about this whole idea.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm going to close the discussion period now, just so we can go to the next presentation. But I just want everyone to give a round of applause and to give Antoine, Ghislaine, and Danielle a warm thank you. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciative to have you present at night in Canada before a grant application, especially. So thanks so much again.